Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, and I am passionate about helping scholarly mamas like you navigate your journeys with purpose so you can achieve your life and academic goals without sacrificing what matters. The reality is that scholarly mama life is multidimensional. We're scholars, yes, but we're also mothers, wives, and so much more, with whole lives outside of academia. So how do we successfully navigate all this? Well, first, we need the space to embrace this unique blend. Only then can we begin the important work of becoming purposefully whole. And part of my own purposeful work is to create a space for us as scholarly mamas to grow, to reflect, and to become everything that we were meant to be. So, mama, are you in? Fabulous. Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. Hey mamas, welcome back to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. As always, I am so grateful that you've chosen to be here. I don't take this for granted at all because there's a million other things that you could be doing right now and you've chosen to tune into this podcast. So please accept my humblest gratitude. Thank you so much for being here. As you know, we've opened the doors as scholarly mamas finally on the 1st of January 2024. I'm super excited. And we've had a few people join so far. I'm so excited that you are choosing to make 2024 a year with a difference, to do something different, try something different, just step out of your comfort zone. And one of the ways you've chosen to do that is by joining us inside Scholarly Mamas. So thank you so much. If you want to join our free plan, you can do so via our Explore plan, or you can upgrade to our collective plan, which you can find all the information about this on scholarlymamas.com, or you can head over to mrsmummyphd.com/mamanar, MAMANAR, and you can find out how you can access our free PhD with Purpose Mamanar, and you'll get access to Scholarly Mamas that way as well. So excited for everything that is to come. You know, it's new, it's still being built, but I am just so proud of the fact that I've been able to step forward into what I believe is something I need to do and something I've been called to do. And I'm so grateful that the action takers among us opted to be a part of something new and amazing and want to be a part of this purposeful space. So thank you so much. I hope that we can serve you in 2024 at the highest level and that you can feel connected to a supportive community inside of Scholarly Mamas. So thank you so much. So this episode has really been inspired by some thoughts I've been having recently about failure because, you know, it's a new year and everybody's reflecting on all the wins that they had in 2023 and all the amazing things that they were able to achieve. And, you know, I am grateful that 2023 saw me have quite a few really major wins. And one of those wins was completing my PhD, which I'm so incredibly proud of and so grateful that I've been able to do that. But what about failure? What about when you don't feel like you've got all these massive wins and you're celebrating and happy for those people who've had those wins, but internally you feel like, what about you? Like, when is it going to be your turn to have some wins? And so I wanted to talk about failure today because I feel like it's one of those things that's frowned upon and it feels like you are just disappointing yourself and others, and it feels like there's no way forward sometimes from this. And of course, I am not a mental health expert or professional. So if you are feeling that you need to have mental health support, or if you had an experience that to you felt like failure and you need that mental health support, please do seek out sources of support, whether that's through your university or whether that's through your healthcare provider. Please do seek out that support. I am purely sharing my thoughts from a position of lived experience. So please feel free to seek professional help if you need it. Okay, so on that note, When I think about our journeys as scholarly mamas, in academia, setbacks are an inevitable part of the journey. You're doing research, and failure and things not working out is a huge part of that. You might encounter experiments or studies that don't yield the expected results or outcomes that you hope for. You may be submitting a paper for publication and it be rejected, or a conference and it be rejected. You may even have moments where the pure weight of self-doubt feels overwhelming in itself. But here's the truth. Here's the thing about failure. Failure is not a full stop. Failure is not a full stop. Failure is a comma in your story. I'm going to say that again. Failure is not a full stop. Failure is a comma in your story. And so I wanted to first, before we get into how we can reframe failure for ourselves, because this episode is all about reframing failure. And so I wanted to talk about the different ways in which failure can be perceived, particularly by us as scholarly mamas, because I think that these two concepts of failure on one hand and obviously success on the other, I think that these affect us in different ways as scholarly mamas, and our perception of these two concepts is potentially different from those who are not actually navigating the juggle struggle. And so I wanted to spend a few minutes just walking through the different ways that we perceive ourselves as failures and how it can show up for us as scholarly mamas on our doctoral journeys. And so the first way that thoughts of failure can show up for us as scholarly mamas is not achieving a goal. So this type of failure might feel the most common because we're all goal-driven academic mamas, and we set goals and we kind of work towards them, whether you're setting SMART goals or whether you're setting flexi goals. I've started to do that more so than not. Or maybe you don't set goals at all, but maybe you're working towards a particular outcome. And when you have those specific objectives or targets and you don't reach them, that can make you feel like a failure. And for example, in your PhD journey, this could manifest as not meeting a research deadline, or failing to obtain certain experimental results, or missing out on academic milestones like publications or grants. And you might feel like you are just a complete failure when you've experienced these things. The other way that we can sometimes perceive ourselves as being a failure is when we are changing our path. And so we've declared to the world, we're doing a PhD, we're pursuing a particular career, we're doing X, Y, Z. But then what happens when you want to pivot and change direction? What happens then? Then you feel like, oh, I'm disappointing all these people that I declared my intentions to, and now I'm a complete failure. In academia, for example, this could mean realizing that the original research question that you set out for your PhD needs to be refined, or that there's a shift in methodology required that could yield more valuable insights. Or it could be just recognizing that redirection or adaptation is necessary, and therefore feeling like you've got to change direction in some way, change paths in some way. And here's the thing. I've experienced probably all these types of perceptions of failure over the years and have had to work through each one on its own. But here's the thing about changing paths. One of the things that we somehow forget as scholarly mamas, and this is why it's really important, I think, and I talk about this so much. This is the importance of seeing your PhD journey, your motherhood journey, all of these things is why I talk so much about journeys of becoming. Because when you think about your path as a journey, rather than just a destination, because when you change a destination, you've changed the whole game, right? But when you see it as a journey, there's no failure. There's no wrong path. There's no wrong way, because every single path, every single journey, every single step of the way is a learning opportunity for you. So seeing your PhD as a journey and not as a destination to kind of an end point to just get to allows you to embrace the fact that changing path is not a failure. The other thing that I thought about when I thought about this idea of, changing a path being a failure, I mean, I've experienced this. If you want to hear more about how I changed paths, I talk about this in my PhD with Purpose webinar. So you can head over there. You can sign up for that. I'll leave a link in the show notes to the webinar. But the other thing as well is that when we see changing path as some sort of indication of failure, it's because we don't embrace growth. And when we embrace growth, we understand and we accept that we are not today the same person that we were 5, 10, 15, whatever years ago. When we started this journey, perhaps we had different ideas of how we wanted to navigate it. Perhaps we started this journey not being a mama and suddenly we've got to juggle various responsibilities. Perhaps we have changed our interests. Perhaps we've changed the lifestyle that we are pursuing and the way we want to live that lifestyle. And so many things change along the way. So many things change within us and around us that it's impossible for us to be the same person that we were when we began this journey. And it's okay to embrace our new selves. It's okay to embrace our authentic selves, even with that changed trajectory, that changed path. And so by embracing growth, by having that mindset of, I am on a journey, this is all part of the process, I'm learning along the way, then we won't feel like failures when we change paths because we accept that we're not the same person that we were when we began this journey. Circumstances may have changed. Timelines may have changed. External circumstances like funding or, personal responsibilities may have changed. And so embracing those changes allows us to feel less of a failure and more of someone who's on a path of growth and just learning along the way as we go. And this is true for all of us, right? Throughout my scholarly journey, so, the various academic degrees I've done, I've realized that once I gave myself permission to change, once I gave myself permission to choose, and that's the key word. It's not even just about quitting or changing paths, but permission to choose what's best for you. And once I gave myself permission to do that, it just allowed me to embrace changing paths or changing direction. And when I came to the various challenges that I encountered in my PhD, like having to change my methodology and other things, I realized that this new mindset of choice and embracing choice and also embracing change really allowed me to be so much more adaptable, allowed me to be so much more resilient to those changes and not being overwhelmed by them, not taking them personally and not thinking like I am a total failure because look, I've got to change something quite significant, in my plan. And so, there's so many benefits to just embracing the fact that changing a path is not an indication of failure. The other way that we often perceive failure, the other circumstance that we also perceive as being a failure is a little bit, I guess, more internal. And this is just a general feeling of not feeling good enough. This is more of a personal aspect of failure, often tied to self-worth, and it occurs when setbacks or challenges are internalized as indicators of personal inadequacy. For instance, being rejected for a paper submission, leading to feelings of imposter syndrome or doubting one's competence in the academic field, or perhaps having a PhD viva and having to make substantial amendments. You may think, oh my goodness, I'm not even deserving of this qualification that I've worked so hard for. And so this general feeling of not feeling good enough is another way that us as scholarly mamas sometimes can feel inadequate, can feel just not up to par and not good enough. And again, I talk about this idea of wanting to be the perfect PhD student, the perfect mama. Again, comparing ourselves to other mamas, may make us feel like we are not good enough as mothers as well. We're not doing all the things that other mamas are doing, or we're not able to put in the time into our interests or passions or family life, other things that other mamas seem to be doing. And that again can make us feel enormous amounts of guilt, but also feeling like we are a failure. We're failing on all fronts. And that is another way that we can sometimes perceive failure. Another way that we can sometimes perceive failure, and this one is deep, because I'm telling you, as much as, everyone's making promises to themselves right now in 2024, I'm telling you, especially at this time of year, when everybody is reflecting on the year that has passed and setting all these New Year's resolutions and words of the year and celebrating all the wins and reflecting on the wins and all of that, one of the things that really hits us is when we reflect on the promises that we made to ourselves the year before, when we haven't met them, we haven't kept and honored the commitments or the promises that we made to ourselves. This is the worst feeling ever, because when you have set an intention, you have declared to yourself that you're going to do more of this or more of that, or less of this or less of that, or you're going to work towards this, or you're going to work towards that, and then you don't do it, right? How awful does that feel? How incredibly awful does that feel? So for example, things like work-life balance, for example, which I tend to not use that term anymore. I talk more about work-life blend or work-life harmony, because I just feel like balance implies that things are distributed in equal proportion, and that is not always the case. I mean, there's so much flexibility that has to come with trying to find a work-life blend, and it is not equal distribution of time and energy. It is not that. But maybe you have decided that you want to work towards having a better work-life, quote unquote, balance. You want to work on your mental health, or you want to practice more self-care, or whatever it may be. And you don't do these things. You never followed through with these promises to yourself. It can feel awful. And this could be purely down to the demands of the doctoral journey, down to the demands of the juggle struggle, having to manage PhD life or a doctoral life and real life as well. It is not an easy feat. But I think one of the things here is that setbacks on even our personal goals, even the personal contracts that we've made with ourselves, doesn't equate to you being a failure. It doesn't equate to this overall global personification of failure. It doesn't, right? And so just to recap, those are the main, I think, ways that I've come up with for how we perceive failure. So failure as not achieving a goal or goals, failure as changing our path or chosen path, failure as not feeling good enough internally, and failure as breaking promises that we've made to ourselves. And so by thinking about these various facets and these various conceptualizations of failure that we all experience on this, scholarly mama journey, and recognizing that you are not a global failure. This is not achieving one or two of these things or not being able to follow through with something doesn't make you overall a failure. It doesn't mean that you are never going to achieve your goals, or that you're not capable of achieving your goal, not deserving of achieving your goals. It doesn't mean any of that, right? None of that. equate to personal inadequacy. None of it. And so now I wanted to shift gears and focus on how we can reframe failure. How can we think about failure differently in a way that allows us to not define ourselves as failures when these things happen? And so the first one is embracing a growth mindset. This has been the single most important thing that I have done in the last, I would say, how many ever years? I can't even think of a number now, but this embracing the growth mindset. Now, I have always loved learning. I've always been the one asking all the questions and challenging things and just learning and growing. Like, I've always loved that about myself. And in recent years, I've learned about growth mindset, but I didn't know about growth mindset before. I didn't know that as a child growing up who just loved learning, that it was all about growth mindset. But I realized on reflection that it was, and that I did have a growth mindset. And once I was brave and bold enough to choose what I wanted my life to look like and the paths I wanted to take on this journey, I was able to really hone that growth mindset. And so one way that we could reframe failure is by adopting that growth mindset and embracing setbacks as opportunities for growth and learning. So thinking about those failed experiments or those unmet deadlines or having to change methodology or whatever, just thinking about all those things that we perceive as failures as stepping stones towards a more refined thesis, a more refined methodology, a more adaptable and more appropriate methodology, or even thinking as rejected papers or conference submissions, if they happen to be rejected, that you see them as opportunities to improve your writing, to improve your the structure of your arguments, or to improve the presentation of your findings. And so seeing these things as opportunities for growth will help us to quiet this idea of not feeling good enough and quiet these thoughts about not being adequate for the success that we deserve and desire. The other thing that helps with reframing failure is celebrating effort. Celebrating effort. And remembering that celebrating your efforts matters just as much as celebrating achievement. So we're very good at celebrating achievements and sharing all our wins and, letting everybody know what we've achieved. But when it comes to valuing our own efforts and the amount of work that we put into these various things, whether it be our PhD or family lives, how easily do we downplay our efforts? How easy is it to forget how much work we've actually put in? We don't want to acknowledge how hard we've worked and how much work we've put in because we feel like we don't have enough to show for that work. We feel like we don't have enough of an outcome or a significant outcome to show for the amount of work we've put in. But I challenge you to celebrate and acknowledge the effort and really acknowledge how much work you've poured into something even before you have the outcome, even before you have something to show for that work. And so even something as simple as the words that we use to describe that thing, so shifting from quit to choice, shifting from failure to learning experience, I think these are the kind of language shifts that really affect how we perceive and approach the challenges that we face. And so shifting our language in that way can help us to really embrace these setbacks and these challenges, not as global indications of failure, but as opportunities to learn and grow and change our mindset about them. And so that's definitely one thing that will also help. The next strategy for reframing failure, I'd say, is community support. And this is huge, huge, huge for me because when you are navigating quote unquote failure in isolation, It's very easy to sell yourself the narrative and the thinking process that you're not good enough, you're a failure, you're never going to achieve a goal. But when you surround yourself with people who not only understand the journey, but are there to offer you encouragement and support along the way, you realize that you don't have to go through this alone, and that it's okay to fail. It's okay to quit. It's okay to do something different, change paths. It's okay to reflect and think, actually, I don't want that for myself anymore. And sharing setbacks and learning from each other's experiences not only normalizes the setbacks and the challenges, but also strengthens our collective resilience. And this is really one of the reasons why I have started and founded Scholarly Mamas, because I feel like, having navigated this journey myself, and in particular experiencing those feelings of isolation as a scholarly mama, in the sense that, yes, I did have friends and family that were supportive, and I did have colleagues that I was able to interact with, but I felt like people didn't fully get this journey, this scholarly mama journey, this journey of navigating both the PhD life and the mum life all at the same time, with young kids or even older kids. But as a mama, I think that this was such a unique journey, and I really needed and wished I'd had that support. And so by building a community specifically for mamas on this journey is so important to me. And I believe it's part of my purposeful work. And therefore, this has to be on that list, because for me, it's about having a supportive space to embrace those failures and realize that you're not alone. Other people on this journey have experienced similar failures, similar setbacks, similar challenges. And, we're not here to judge anyone. We're not here to tell you what to do, but we're here to just be a listening ear and to let you know that you're not alone, really. And so, as scholarly mamas on our doctoral journey, reframing failure allows us to see beyond the immediate setbacks. And it's about recognizing that those setbacks are not roadblocks, but that they're just detours on the way, guiding you towards purposeful success. I talk about purposeful success in our PhD with Purpose Maminar. Please do check it out at mrsmummyphd.com/Maminar. And I'd love to see you inside of Scholarly Mamas. Our doors are now open. You can access the free plan. It's called Explore if you wish. And if you wish to, you can upgrade to our collective plan, where we'll have all of the Scholarly Mamas offerings. And so thank you so much for tuning in today. Remember, as always, your journey is unique, and setbacks are just pit stops on the road to purposeful success. So remember to keep embracing the journey. Remember that you've got this, and I cannot wait to see you inside of Scholarly Mamas. Until next time, as always, I'm sending you lots of love and lots of gratitude. Take care, Mama. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did and you want in on this movement, why not head over to mrsmummyphd.com. You can join the waitlist for our exclusive community of smart, purposeful, scholarly mamas. We'd love to see you on the inside. Remember, Mama, these are our journeys of becoming.